Good morning, folks. We're back out at Dad's shop again today, and today I'm starting another project. This might end up being two parts because I think this one's going to take a while, and the last video was over an hour long. I want to try to not be that long, but we got to start out by opening up the package. I bought something that's definitely a bit of a basket case off of eBay, but I think for the price that I paid for it, I can't even remember. I think that I'll have to look again. I don't know if I paid $15 or $25 for it, but nobody even bid on it, and you'll see why once I get it out of here, because it looks pretty bad until you get looking a little closer at it, and I thought that one probably needs to be saved.
Got some paper to read.
Yep. Got a bag of air for you.
I don't want to read that.
No. That's some arts and lifestyles page. Doesn't say what paper it is though. Classifieds. Oh, the Beacon Record News. Times Beacon Record News Media, it says.
Look at the real estate.
Alright, let's get this out of here. Okay, they got the actual lantern wrapped up. Yeah, it's a lantern. I guess I didn't even say that before, but they got it wrapped up in a reusable bag.
Yeah.
Uncle Giuseppe's Marketplace.
Hey, never been there.
They got a calendar in here. Alright, let's
Yep, right here.
take this
125.
poor old thing out of the bag and look at what we got here. First of all, we got a whole bunch of crumbling mica,
Oh my.
and we got a little bit of an old vent, but not much to go off of there. This poor old mica chimney is in pretty much junk condition, but
We can put it back together.
well, I'm actually going to save
Yeah.
all these little mica panels because I've got a couple of these chimneys that are missing or have broken panels in them. So
Yeah, neat.
even that, it's not garbage. That is something I'm definitely going to put away and keep, and I'm going to try to repair a couple of my broken mica chimneys. Here's the whole panel that slides up and down, so if I had one that was missing that, so that's definitely not junk.
Yeah.
Alright, let's take a look at what we actually got for a lantern here. It already looks a little better, just getting the junk off of it. This is a 427 lantern, but it's a very late 427. It's after they had the pump built into the fount, more like a very early 220, but it's still a 427 because it's still got the vent that says Coleman Quick Light, or not vent, the collar here that says Coleman Quick Light. And honestly, looking at it here, that's not a great,
That's not liquid sound.
not a great thing, but that's not a deal breaker by any means.
It'll be okay.
Looking at it now, it's better than I expected from the pictures. Let me look at my phone. I see what I paid for it. I can't remember.
I gotta throw the ball for the dog again.
Yeah. Yeah, I paid $25 for it. Well, let's take a look here. Underneath the fuel cap, there ought to be a... Wipe that off just a little bit here. That's where the logo and the date code on these old 327 and 427 lanterns is. says Coleman Quick Light, Sunshine of the Night, and this says 8/11. So this is a November of 1928 427 lantern. I'm not exactly positive, but I think that might be the last year. I think maybe 29 or 30 they switched to the 220s, but I'll look that up and I'll put it down at the bottom of the screen. I'm not positive when it was, but this was definitely pretty late in the run for a 427. Caps off or loose. Actually, the gasket looks fair. Smells like nothing. The stuff that's in there won't come out because there's a bit of a collar in there, but we'll get it flushed out. But honestly, it doesn't look as bad as I thought it might be. I do believe we may need to just pull it apart. That'll make it easier to get the fount cleaned out. That'll make it easier to get the fount cleaned up. Once again, I'm not going to polish anything, but I will knock off the loose stuff. It looks like the nickel underneath there probably is pretty good shape. So to start out, let's just tear this poor old thing down quick. I've had a couple of, at least one 427 taken apart in a previous video. I can put a link to that video down in the description. But yeah, this being right at the end of the 427 run, it definitely is. Knob turns. Very much like a 427/220 hybrid almost.
It looks like it's a good looking lantern.
Yeah, so let's see if the tip cleaner knob, no, it's pretty tight. We'll force it right now. Let's see if we can get this. Yeah, broke right loose. Wiggle that around a little bit and try to get the two parts of it. There we go. Broke loose from each other so we can
That's all brass.
spin this out of here. The nut's steel.
Is it?
Yeah, I've got a...
That's not good news.
No, I've got a 427 that nut is completely
I remember that one.
rusted away. There's nothing left of it. So whenever that... And it's got the old Q99 generator in it. And if that generator ever plugs up, I'm going to have to just chip out all that rust of that nut out of there and try to get it out of there. And it's going to be a project whenever that thing ever does need to come apart.
Will this dog get tired of running pretty soon?
Yeah, about 4 or 5 hours.
Well, I'm gonna go take a nap here pretty soon.
Okay, got the generator out. R55, I'm finally starting to remember that. R55. But yeah, the tip cleaner doesn't want to turn. We'll hit it with a little bit of heat, but let's see. Air passes through it, so that's a good sign.
You want some PV flasher put on that, or it probably won't make any difference on that stuff that's all brass, will it?
Yeah, I don't think it'll make a big difference right at this point. Now this part in here, now I'll get the camera around on this side, maybe I can show you a little better. This right in here, that's a separate plate that's on the inside of here, and then this piece around the outside is a separate piece. That part should turn in there when we thread this apart, in theory. I messed up one time because I didn't know how that came apart, and I bent these tabs down to get them out of the way, and I broke one of the tabs off. It didn't make a big difference. The lantern still works fine, but knowing what I know now, that center part should turn, and you shouldn't have to bend those little tabs down out of the way. And with any luck, I'll be able to just get this adjustable wrench in here. Get the camera back over here again for a second. Get an adjustable wrench in there. Just like that. So it fits around the outside of that little figure 8 shaped piece. And with any luck, like it's around the outside of those tabs bent up and everything. With any luck, I'll be able to break all that loose and turn it all together. I might end up having to get our lantern vise and throw it over on the other side of the table here. But we'll try just breaking it loose here. Yep, that's going to have to be held more securely than that. We'll pause the camera for a minute and get it set up in the lantern vise. Alright, we got her clamped in the lantern vise here. Got the lantern vise clamped down to the table. Now let's see if this will move or not. Yep. See, that whole center portion is turning. The whole thing will come apart as one piece. And usually they're not terribly hard to get apart. They come apart pretty good for something that's
look how rusty they are.
Been together for, well, since 1928, so
yeah, it doesn't look like it's been apart.
97 years. I guess only 96 and a half. It was right at the end of 28, so
well, that's what the difference.
That's what makes the difference. Now that threads right off of there. Here's your burner assembly. And then this plate, like I said, you don't have to bend those tabs. It looks like that one got a little bent around there, but we'll straighten it back up nice.
Then there's a washer under there.
Yep, we'll clean. We'll get some wire brushes and clean all these parts up. But like I said, I'm not polishing anything. I'm just gonna clean it up good. But this cage, in the pictures, I thought it was almost completely rusted away, but it's really not that bad. I already,
looks fine.
Just with my thumbs, I just straightened up the top of it around there. That is definitely in decent enough shape. I'll go around and straighten up like that little bent spot there with a hammer, tap it down a little bit, take a wire brush, brush it down, and that's all that I will do with that. Now to get color off here, this color has a little right there, so you just slide it out far enough to get to the thinner part of the stem and it'll pop right off of there. Let's see if that'll turn. No, I'll just take this to the vise. I can put this part in the vise, clamp it, and then just turn the fount to get it off of there. There we go. Just clamp this. The 427s have like a flats on them like a nut. Just clamp that just tight enough in the vise to hold it so it couldn't turn, and then flip it upside down and you can turn that to just thread it right off of there. Well, that hole is not going to be helpful for getting anything out of there, but I can blow air in through that hole while I'm shaking it and trying to blow stuff out of this one. Pull the pump out, see what we got on the pump here. Ooh. Ooh. That's
yucky.
It's yucky, but it's not. The leather actually still looks okay.
Yeah.
Pretty hard. I'll stick it in my Marble Mystery Oil, but I think first I'll hit it with a brass brush here to knock the rust off of it, and I'll spray it down with some brake parts cleaner, and then we'll throw this in the Marble Mystery Oil. And that sleeve going down in there, it looks rusty now, but that's brass. So that rust is just rust from the metal spring and the metal washer and stuff on here that is down in there. And if that check valve seems like it's going to work, I don't know. I assume this just has a regular, like a 220 style check valve in there. Yeah, it looks like it. So if we need to take the check valve out to get it to work, I think I'll be able to get it out of there. But for right now, I'm gonna spray this down with a little carb cleaner and try to get some of the rust knocked off of it. Spray some carb cleaner through there and rinse that out. And then we'll be right back. Okay, sprayed some carb cleaner in there, rinsed it out, stuck a piece of this Scotch-Brite in there and kind of cleaned it up a little bit. You definitely could, if you wanted to, take this stem and packing out, but I've got no reason to. It passes air through it when I open it. It stops when I close it, so I've got no reason to tear that the rest of the way apart. I'll just clean it up a little bit. Like I said, I don't polish stuff. I don't want it to be super shiny. I just want to knock the loose dirt and debris off of it and get it in good mechanical, good working order. Well, before we put it together, I'll spray carb cleaner through everything, through all the parts that have to pass fuel. For right now, I'm just going to start trying to knock some of this crust off of here. This Scotch-Brite, like if you're worried about me damaging the finish on here with the Scotch-Brite, this is very, very fine Scotch-Brite. And it's like 40 years old and almost falling apart, so it's not going to damage the finish on the lantern. But it is abrasive enough to knock loose all the stuff that's just built up on there. Grab just a little dribble of lacquer thinner again. That works pretty good for cleaning these up. I'm just gonna go around and try to get all of everything that's loose on here scrubbed off. You making some progress there?
Yeah, I got the spring. It looks like a spring again.
Leather doesn't look terrible.
I think it'll be okay.
Yeah.
It's not broken.
Yep.
I'm trying to get the rust off this plate now. Or whatever that is. Big chunky stuff.
Yeah, it's rust. It's just... that's really slick where it's sitting there. I probably should have a towel underneath this. I don't know if this cheap mat off Amazon is how chemical resistant it actually is. I'm sure it's
fine.
Probably the best you can get.
"20-year-old lacquer thinner still got a lot of bite though."
Yep. All right, let's see here. Like I said, I'm not getting carried away here. I just want to knock all the loose stuff off of it.
Oh, that leather's got some problems.
And does it? It was fine before you started messing with it.
It's falling apart.
Damn it.
Yep, it's really falling apart.
Just can't have nice things.
Nope, nope.
Well, I guess I'm going to be out like a 39-cent leather then to put on there. Hopefully it takes the same size as a normal lantern. way I'm going to try to get the chunks out of there, I just take the air gun, hold the air gun up there so it's blowing air in through that hole. And then while I'm blowing air in through that hole, I put this one straight down, shake it around. There's a little bit of stuff coming out there now, even having that air blowing in through there, so it's forcing air out through that hole. It picks up a lot more of the chunks of debris in there and blows them right out through the fill cap. You can get them pretty good that way, and then I'll put just an ounce of Coleman fuel in it 2 or 3 times, slosh it around, dump it back out to get it flushed out. That usually gets me by pretty good. Dad's working on the cage over there. He already hit the collar.
Got a collar cleaned up nice.
Yeah. And he started on this. I might go a little harder on that. I might take that to the wire wheel on the vise actually, or on the vise, on the bench grinder, and hit that a little harder. But that looks like it's cleaning up pretty decent too, so. Yep. Let's rinse this off a little bit. Just took that over to the bench grinder and knocked a little bit more of the rust scale off of there. And that is all the fancier I'm going to get with that. While Dad's still back there scrubbing on that cage, I'm going to...
I think I shook the camera a little bit there.
No, that's good for it. I'm going to blow some air through here and blow it up through the tubes so it comes out the bottom, and then blow in through there, run a piece of welding wire in through there. Just try to make sure there's not bugs been living up in there, and get it all cleaned out good. Well, that stem on there is pretty rusty. It's getting a little thin, but it'll probably still work. Okay, got that all blown out. I'm going to take a piece of Scotch Brite here and just scrub all the loose debris off of it. U.S. Patent May 1919. Alrighty, well, I believe Dad got this cage cleaned up. I just hit it with a little bit of that lacquer thinner to wash it off. That is good enough for that. Steel wool, wipe it on this
You cleaned
collar.
up nice. It might have been prettier silver before.
And I guess I could hit that with it, even though this WD-40 will just burn back off of there. All right. Let's spray just a little bit of carb cleaner through this valve just to make sure I blew air through it, but make sure there's no little pieces of debris in there or anything. There we go. There, I think we can probably put this back together. Dad was on the phone for a few minutes, so while he was doing that, I replaced the leather on the pump. It was old and gummy, and as he was working with it, it just started falling apart, which is not uncommon. Sometimes they just...
Oh, pretty crummy in that.
Yeah, sometimes if they've been wet and stuff, they just get rotten, and even if they look decent still, when you start fiddling with them, they just kind of fall apart. I've had people ask, and I just commented a couple days ago on the Coleman lantern group about what kind of sealer to use between on the threads of this where the valve goes into the fount. And I told the person on there the other day, or my comment amongst many of them, is that I don't use any sealer on the fount. On these old 427, 327, and the QL lanterns and stuff, I don't believe there is a correct way to clock these lanterns. I've seen them several different ways, so I go until it's good and tight, about like that, and I've never had a problem with one leaking. Now some people might be worried about having that perfectly lined up between the filler and the pump. If you are, that's fine. You can find some kind of sealer to put in there, but I just go until it's tight and leave it where it is. If it was on like a newer 220 or 228, I would go until it was tight and like directly centered right up above the Coleman logo or whatever. But on these, I just go until it is good and snug, and that's where I leave it. We'll get this thing thrown back together here. And we got this little plate drops back down in there. And then your burner. I kind of bent these little tabs on the plate around a little bit when I was working on it and cleaning it. So I'll just use a wrench and kind of fine tune on those to get them to where they fit. To where this fits in there. But they still
a little bit more
close right up against the side of it. I don't want to have a bunch of extra space around it, but have it so that'll slide right in there. Just like that. Fits nice and snug. Holds it all together. And then you can...
Well, that breathes air from inside that cage.
Yep, it does. I think Coleman always did that. Not like the new light that I had that pulls it from outside the cage. Oh, come on, get started on there. There we go. Make sure I got the threads started on there straight. I don't want to cross thread it.
Looking good.
I will tighten this down until it's in a position that I like. It doesn't have to be torqued down super, super tight. It's just got to be tight enough to hold everything together. But you always end up, once you're going on here, having to go in between these. I actually may quit right there. That's tight enough that nothing wants to move around.
Seems to be okay.
And it's also got the burners kind of lined up with the knob on the front of it. You know, yeah, I think so. I think I'm going to quit right there. I will take the tip off the generator here. Make sure that my tip cleaner rod, I need to get that to where it'll turn. And I was like, make sure I could see light through that tip before I start on it. I know it passes air, so. Okay, let's see if we can just start wiggling this and get that to...
Did you loosen that jam nut?
No. Still pretty tight, so I'm gonna just put a little bit of WD-40 down there. I don't want to damage it. I can rinse, like spray some carb cleaner through there and get all the WD-40 out of there. And if there's a little bit of WD-40 in there, it's not going to hurt anything and just make it smoke a little bit. I don't know if these generators have like the asbestos packing or some kind of packing in them or what they've got. Boy, that is...
I would think they probably do.
That is awfully snug still. Might have to... I've never taken one of these apart actually, so maybe we will. Maybe we'll just pop this apart. I feel like it's got to have, there's got to be a little eccentric on the end of that that goes into the tip cleaner rod, just like on a more modern 220 or 228. Yeah, just a little, yeah, it's got WD-40 on it, you can't see it good now. Like a little cam, like a little, this is round and then the post is off to one side so that when you turn it, that goes around and around, and that runs your tip cleaner, which I would imagine will come out of here now since I took that loose, maybe? Ooh. Okay, I can't seem to get this generator clear apart, but I do have a little eccentric that turns the tip cleaner out. And I've got, this one comes apart into two pieces. This bottom part, threads on there. It's reverse threads, so I hope I didn't screw up the threads too badly trying to get it pulled off of there to where it won't seal up anymore, but we'll see when we get ready to put it back together. But who would have ever thought that that would have come apart and had reverse threads on it? If I did screw it up, I've got a modern replacement generator that still is a rotary type like this. It'll work, but I'd like to use this one if we can make it work. The part with the tip cleaner, I can push it in and out, tip cleaner moves. I just got to get that little eccentric freed up.
Was that spring loaded in there?
Nope, no, this just, when you turn it one way, it pushes it up, turn it the other way, it pulls it back down. Well, I'm going to put this in the vise and I'm going to...
Hate to heat it because it might ruin that seal in there.
It should be just a packing. It should be able to take some heat, so I'm going to try heating it up a little bit. Okay, well this is still too dang hot to touch, but I'm going to start trying to thread it back together in here. I got to get the two pieces threaded together so that the, oh, there it goes, the little eccentric has to catch into the rod for the tip cleaner, and it went right in there and I saw the tip cleaner pull back in, so I know those two parts are aligned with each other. So we can snug that back up. Yeah, I hope I didn't damage too badly where that's got reverse threads on it and made it leak. But that's how you learn things when you've never worked on something before. You just start working on it, and then every once in a while you screw something up and you're like, oh, duly noted, won't do that again in the future. Tip cleaner part's coming up and down. I'm going to try to get it in front of the camera. You can't see that. Wire is about the size of a hair, so the way that I do on anything that's got a packing in it is I just tighten it a little bit and then turn it. Tighten it a little bit more, turn it again. When it gets like to where it just feels right. Like when you work on lanterns or work on anything that you work on, you get used to feeling how hard it is for something to turn typically. And you just keep going a little bit, like right there. That feels just about right. So it's like everything, there's just a learning curve to it, and you just have a feeling for when something feels right. Can't see light through that at all, but we'll thread it back together and see if I see the tip cleaner wire come poking out through it.
Nothing else, you can blow air down through the bottom.
I've blown air through the whole generator. I blew air through the tip cleaner with my mouth. It's getting air through it. I just can't see light through this one for some reason.
Getting air but not light.
Well, if the hole's too small for light to pass through it, that's pretty small.
Yep, pretty tight.
There we go. That's snug enough. Yeah, I can see the tip cleaner wire poke up through there. So
if it comes through it, it ought to be open.
Okay, thread this bottom back on there with reverse threads. Snug it up till it's good and snug, and hopefully it doesn't leak. Hopefully I didn't, because I started out trying to turn it the other way. And then when I went to tighten it back up because I was afraid I might be hurting it, oh, it feels like it's snugging up good. When I was afraid I might be hurting it, so I went to just put it back the way it was, it broke loose right away. So,
well, who would have thought that?
I'm going to quit right there. Hopefully it doesn't leak. Well, there's the generator. Back one piece. Get the generator up into the burner.
Soon we'll have another one over home.
I want to have that tip cleaner so it's not lined right up with the knob and everything else, so that you can get in there and turn the tip cleaner easily. Alright, we're looking like a lantern again here. This basket case is starting to come together. So let's grab my pump, stick it back in there. Alright, let's thread our little needle back in there. We'll see if this builds any pressure, and if this check valve seems like it's going to hold. I actually think I want to spray a little WD-40 down into that check valve. I didn't even take it out. I blew air with my mouth and air passes through it, so it goes one way, but the check valve isn't much good if it goes both ways. So we'll put a little WD-40 in there so that when we first start pumping, it's going to push that WD-40 through the check valve, and hopefully everything will loosen up and the check valve will check. That's the new leather I stuck on there. It's the same size as a 220 or 228, or at least that's what I put on there. So hopefully I'm able to
Looks like it's about right.
Squeeze it in there. These are hard to get it into anyway, because the top end of this, where the threads come to an end, are sharp and they want to bite right into that leather. So these, like the 220 B and C's with these threaded pumps, they are hard to get the leather started into. But once it's in there, it should be fine. All right. got my finger over the hole. Give it a few pumps here and see what it does. Well, it's leaking around that check valve, that's for sure. Get a little more pressure. There, it's starting to hold.
Yep. I was going to say it might.
Yep.
You can work it back and forth a few times.
Definitely building pressure. I'm going to do another trick that I do sometimes. Because if it's... damn, I hate to pull that clear back out of there. Well, I'm going to. I can get it back in there. Sometimes, if they are leaking by a little bit, you can take a little bit of Coleman fuel, or you can use carb cleaner, brake parts cleaner. Just make sure it's not the chlorinated shit. Put a little bit of that in there, and then you reinstall your pump, and when you push that pump down, it's going to push that Coleman fuel right through that check valve. And if that check valve's just got a little dirt or debris in it that is keeping it from sealing good, it'll flush right through and start working. Sometimes you also can just get by with one that leaks by a little bit and use it a little bit, and it'll eventually start sealing good. Just gotta make sure I got all the leather poked down in there. There we go, so that it doesn't damage that new leather on there. Now make sure this is open and just push that down, and that just pushed all that fuel that we put in there right through and into the fount, and hopefully flushed out whatever was giving me my problems. I can feel pressure building against my finger there. Yeah, it's holding now. If you put your finger over the end of there and it starts slowly pushing that back out, then you know it's leaking by, but that's holding. So we got whatever was plugging it up pushed out of there. I guess while I still got my finger over that, I'll crack the valve open. Oh yeah, I can definitely hear it. Turn the tip cleaner up, it stops. Turn it back down, it starts right back up. I believe we need to tie some manholes on this and see if it's gonna work or not. And then I think I know there's already a lot of footage recorded here, so the second part of this project is going to be a part 2 video. I kind of hate to do that, but I also don't want to have another longer than an hour video going up. So let's fuel this thing, pump it up, and then we'll tie some manholes on, burn them in, see if this thing's gonna work. Here, I think that can's getting right down there. I might be able just to finish that one off in here. Since I'm gonna be doing a part 2 on this next week, I won't take this home and get a shot of it in the dark tonight if it lights, but eventually I will.
Have to borrow a globe out of something.
I've got a red letter Coleman globe at home that I can use, but that's the same problem as last week's video. Then if you got to turn the tip cleaner, you got to take the whole thing apart. So I really should get another mica chimney for this. But that can wait for now. I can be inconvenienced by having to operate the tip cleaner if I need to for a while. she's fueled up. Let's pump it up. That certainly wasn't a full pound of fuel, but we finished off that gallon.
That was mine anyway. I've got a portable one out in the back room, but it's in a Coleman can. I like to take that camping so people think I'm using the really good stuff.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think I'm not fancy.
No.
No. The fuel valve wasn't shut all the way.
You got to do that.
Yeah. I still hear it leaking from somewhere though. Still here.
Might be residual pressure.
Yeah, I think it quit.
Yeah. Notice that big word?
I don't know, maybe that cap gasket's not as...
Well, it didn't look that great to me, but...
No. I don't hear anything now. I think I was just still hissing out through the...
That was residual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, we'll pause this one more time while I get the mantles tied on here, and then we'll try giving this thing a light up and see if it's going to come back to life. Okay, the mantles are tied on. Let's trim these strings. We'll throw those down on the floor with all the sawdust and pieces of
really bad.
Pieces of broken mica, and let's burn these in, see if they are gonna work or not.
When I cleaned out my motorhome, I found about 12 brand new lighters in it, so.
Yeah, we're still using these old ones that are almost clear out of fuel.
I'll drop it.
Alright, I'm gonna just give that tip cleaner a little turn there. It gurgled a little bit, so there was a little bit of fuel setting in there. I thought it looked like there was fuel at the bottom of that, but it didn't light when I put it down there. I think it's from cleaning stuff up with WD-40.
Got a tiny spot.
Yep. Alright, let's crack this valve open and see if she lights. Yep, gonna have to turn the tip cleaner. Here, we'll get the lighter over here. I can give that tip cleaner a turn. I tried to. There we go. Shut the fuel back off and let it heat up a little bit. I definitely flooded it a little bit. There's fuel coming out down at the bottom down here. There we go. Had to run the tip cleaner a few times. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you gotta run that tip cleaner several times to get it
Do it again.
cleaned out and working good.
Oh, yeah. There she goes.
Especially since I couldn't get that generator all the way apart. But look at that, 1928, so 97 years old. And real time, this has been about an hour and a half since I opened up the box.
1928 is the year my mom was born.
Burning nice and bright. I'm not going to put a glass in it right now. I'll decide what I'm going to do for a temporary glass. I probably will end up getting a new mica for this one also. Boy, that's hot when there's no vent on there. All that heat comes right up to your hand.
Yeah.
But pretty darn good looking lantern. Here, I can set what's left of that back on there.
Nice. all the vent part of it's all gone, isn't
Yeah,
it?
the vent's completely gone. I'll bet it was rusted away. That poor thing, look how rusted out that is. It takes a long time to rust them out that bad underneath the
Yeah.
porcelain or whatever it is, the coating that's on there. But yeah, look at that. She's back alive, burning good. Definitely one that a lot of people wouldn't have even tried to fix, and look at it. That's a good old lantern now.
Yes, it is.
So thanks for watching, everybody. This is going to be the end of it for this video. There will be a part 2. We'll wrap this up for this week. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Leo likes it when you hit the subscribe button, right, Leo?
He's tired.
Yeah. And if you enjoy the content we're putting out and you want to help support our channel, the best way you can do that is just to let the ads play when they come up. I know they're annoying, but that's the best thing you can do right now to help us out. Thanks for watching, folks. Come on back next week. We'll have a video of something here for you to watch.